thanks everybody for coming, and especially thanks to Anna and Lydia from Novoda. Unusually for us, this is not going to be a technical talk per se, but this is about product visioning, product research, and how people like Lydia and Anna make sure that tech people like me build the right things and not just build it right. So I don't know enough about this to say anymore, so I'm going to hand over to Anna and Lydia to give us their presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks for that introduction. I will share my screen. So today we're going to talk to you about defining before diving into a product. This is an intro to product strategy. So I just want to share a little bit with you about Novoda, and who we are. We're a collective of strategists, researchers, designers, and engineering experts. We're built on a foundation of community, and we very much work in an environment of knowledge sharing, learning, and continuous development. We focus on process, evolving that working processes, and we enable teams to drive purposeful and impactful experiences. Collaboration plays a role that we work with our partners and our clients, and that will help us enhance the direction and delivery. So why do companies come to Novoda? I want to talk to you a little bit about the problem space. So there's organizations of all sizes that have a lot of ideas for their products. Some might come with us with a predefined list of features, they might have a roadmap ready, but sometimes it seems that the connection with their users might not be as tight as it could be. It could have been defined very early on, and things have maybe slightly changed a few years later. Sometimes people are looking for a more strategical approach in order to increase downloads, retention, test out new products in their markets, and that's where Novoda comes into play.
Yeah, to bring user centricity and to have a successful product development, product strategy is essential. And this is something organizations are often asking us to help with. So what is product strategy? It's actually a combination of the product vision, the product definition. So basically, why are you building this product? What is this product about? And it will be later translated into a roadmap and a short-term and long-term strategy. And this is really critical because without product strategy, you might end up building something that is for everyone and not really resonating with anyone. That is just too broad. They're just not defined because you miss the opportunity to get close to your user. It is also very important to make sure that the goals for this project or product, the goal of the company, the long-term and short-term one, and the big picture are all aligned between the stakeholders, between the people building the product, and later are going to resonate with people. Next one. So if we look a little bit more in details into the areas of definition of this product strategy, we have first the product definition. It is, in my opinion, the most important one, because this is really where you will discuss with your team, with the stakeholders, define what the purpose of this product is and its vision. And this is a vision that will carry on over the next step, over sometimes year, that will be also reflected in this roadmap that we were talking about. So this is really key. You have also high-level goals that are as well extremely important to include in this product strategy. You have to know exactly what are the goals of this initiative, of this product. Otherwise, again, you might just build something that is not resonating with people, that is not aligned with the business, the organization goals in general. And you have to make sure that those goals are directly connected with the product vision and the product definition. Then you have something that I'm sure you are all very familiar with, the features, the solutions. How are you going to solve the different problems you identify in the product definition, and how to connect them again with the big picture, the high-level goals, and you plan over the months, over the years. That will be translated in this roadmap that always needs to be, again, connected with the rest, with the definition, with the high-level role. And another one that is very often just forgotten, success metrics. how are you actually going to measure the success of this product? And this is something that, in my opinion, should be included to the product strategy and should be included really, really early on, because you want to have some kind of measurement, some kind of metric to understand if your plan is actually carrying on the way you want it to, right? Moving on to this product definition. This is, again, the most important part in my opinion, but I might be biased because I'm product designer, and this is the part that is really, really going to give user centricity to your product and your product strategy. The most critical part in my opinion. And this part can only be achieved through a very, very strong and very ongoing connection with your user, with the people that are going to use this product in the future. And here research is key. If we go and check the different areas of product definition, the next slide, please, we can see that the first one is around the vision. So without a vision, it will be difficult to carry on with your product strategy, with the development of the product itself, because you need to have an aligned goal, an aligned vision for this product. And the vision is basically the purpose for creating this product. And it's also covering what positive change it will bring. It is also answering the question, why are you building this product? And why are you building this product now? Why is it like a good time to do it? Is there really a market for it? Are you really the right company to do it? And this is something that will also evolve a little bit with time as you do more research, as maybe you start to release the first feature and you get even more feedback from people, from user, as you look at data, etc. Another very important area is the target group. So I was just talking about the market fit. That is super, super important. The target group are the users, right? You are actually building something for people. It's not just like a nice product that you can show around. It's for people. People are going to use it. So you need to know them very well. You need to understand their needs. You need to understand their pain point, and you need to make sure that there is a market for it and that you are going to build solution addressing the needs and the pain point of the people. You have to make sure that your solution are going to solve their problems in order for them to use this product. Otherwise it will just, be released and no one will use it. That will be a very sad story. The product itself is part of course, the definition of the product definition. And it's not only what makes it stand out, but also here very early on, there could be some conversation about the feasibility of such products. And there can be very early conversation around technology that should stay very high level because it's still the product definition, but they can already start. And that's why we will go in further detail in this presentation afterwards, but that's why it's very important to have all the team align with the product definition, with the product strategy, and have them participating. And the last one, the business goals. So the business goals are very important as well, because it's not only about product, about the user, but you are an organization and you also need to release something that is aligned with what you want for this organization. And is maybe also aligned with other products you already have out in the market, etc. So you have to know and understand and define how this product is going to align with the company goal and it's going to benefit the company. But again, for me, the most important part is the user centricity. And one very good way to ensure users are in the middle of the conversation and are always in contact with the product team is to follow a process called the design thinking process.
Thank you, Lydia. Very nice handover there. So design thinking, what is that? What does it mean? So it's a sensible approach to a user-centric product definition to allow design thinking principles. It gravitates around 5 different stages, and I'm going to take you through that now. So these are the stages. So empathize. As a designer, it is a core foundation of understanding people to make something for someone. You need to gain an understanding of who your users are, what are the problems that you're trying to solve. That would then lead you to defining, putting that information together, your observations, your analyzations of what has happened to define those core problems. And it's at that point that you can start generating the ideas. So if you start generating the ideas before you empathize and define, you have already lost touch with your users in the first instance. So when you start generating those ideas, you can then prototype those. And prototype can mean many different things. It can be on a piece of paper. It can be something scribbled down. It can be blocks of scribbled down UI. It could be a working prototype on a screen, or it can be a prototype actually in the user's hands on a mobile. There are so many different ways that you can do this, and there are various different fidelities. But it's just important to get this in front of your users, and that leads us to testing. So presenting your users with this stimulus based on your ideas generates areas that you can then loop back and take you right to the beginning to then prioritize and run through the design thinking process. Now, I think it helped me understand what design thinking was when I looked at traditional business thinking versus companies that do design thinking. So I'm going to do a little comparison analysis here. So during the approach, during the start, business thinking companies tend to have a definite linear idea of what they want to do based on some proof. They ask users, or they ask what users say or what they're asking for. They're informed by market analysis and users' behaviours interpretation. They tend to have quite a linear phase and a rigid roadmap. And when they have completed the project, it's at that point that they start to understand the results of the user activities. Whereas when it comes to design thinking, the approach is iterative, it's non-linear, and it's based on learnings as experiences as we go. It's what the users say and do, it's observations and patterns, it's as the markets are changing, as things happen in the world, attitudes and behaviours. For instance, the impact of COVID has changed people's behaviours. And so areas like this, it means that us last year, we're thinking about using our technology very differently from what we were in 2019. We're informed by those users' observations, and then with our ways of working, it's a flexible phase. It's continuously evolving with our customers. As I just took you through the design thinking process and how iterative it is, because we're prototyping earlier, it means that we've already understood many of the areas that we need to look at, we need to work on and improve, and we can start solving other problems. So it's not like solving one problem, getting to the end, moving to the next thing. It's understanding it on a much deeper level. So the research approaches that we do in order to tackle this product definition phase. Something that I found very helpful when I'm starting a new project is stakeholder interviews. It's really important for us to immerse ourselves in the organization's world and really gain an intimate knowledge of their business needs. I've got a couple of questions here that I tend to ask. What are you most excited about? What if you could ask your customers one thing, what would that be? Why is it paramount that we solve this problem now? So the reason why I ask questions like this is there's so many different types of answers that can give you an idea of what's going on in their market that they already know so much about. Or if you ask somebody, why is it important that we solve the problem now? It might be like, oh, because our users are doing this and therefore we need to do that. Or it's like, actually, something is happening within the business that we need to action now. And those two things have very different approaches of how you manage a project. It's a nice chance to understand the team's dynamic, build the relationship with those stakeholders, collate all the research and insights that they already have, and understand the decisions and the guided assumptions that have already happened during the scope of this project. As I said, it's a great way to discover various perspectives, understand different motivations, And also to verify that everyone's aligned to a common goal and vision, that we are looking to build the same thing, and we're all talking about that one thing. So surveys. Personally, I believe that it's quite rare for a survey to land in your inbox and for you to get excited about it. When I've been involved in customer research, and I have done these surveys before, I find it quite interesting. I personally love research. But without an incentive like money off service or like a voucher, why were you going to spend your time to fill this in? If you don't know what you're filling the survey in for, if you're not invested in the project, it's likely that the results that you get back when you send a survey out aren't going to be, particularly well thought through. It's just kind of to get it done. So we use companies such as Prolific is one I've used, which it's a way that you can quickly find research participants that you can trust. And it's a way to recruit niche and representative samples of a user base. They do the recruiting for you, you create the survey, and then you can launch this study and feel a bit more confident about the data that you're getting back. It's very, very important to consider how you're designing these surveys and how you send it out. So when I first was studying UX, someone sent me a link and it was called "The User is Drunk," and it was like design like the user is drunk. So like make sure everything's simple, you've got the buttons there, it's usable, you don't have to hunt for things. So I like to say, design a survey like the person doing the survey would rather be drinking. So make it as simple as possible. Don't do what I have an example here of asking a question and having a free form. It just stresses you out. You're like, what am I going to put into this? I can't even think. So instead, there are different ways where you can present information that is already out there, and work with information that you already have. So this one here is on a wellness survey, and I asked, how can you manage your phone usage? I've got a couple of examples here, and people might be like, oh, actually, yeah, no, these are things I've done. And then that could trigger within them other things that they've done to manage their phone use. So I do have a section here for free entry, and it's very important that people do get their ideas across, but this is a nice way to make sure you send surveys to users and you get the result back that you intended. So how do we then analyze that data? Once you have survey results from hundreds of participants, how is that going to help me make any decisions? So we use some tools which enable us to storytell with our data. So I've got an example here, and what this is it's comparing demographics devices on mental wellness, and you can see all of these dots are actually people that had filled out this survey. And I've set it out in a way where you can see the comparison between Android and iOS users. Android are blue, iOS are yellow, and then I can look at the impact on mental well-being, whether people have said, yeah, I feel like my phone actually has quite a big impact, or not at all. And then I can have a look at the age range of that. So that's quite a nice way to have a visual representation to then say, okay, well, it looks like here that young people within this age group right there are a possible target market for this digital wellness solution. And that leads me on to storytelling. And I really feel like this data work really is part of storytelling. How do we communicate strategy? How do we explain the journey that we went through? What are the rabbit holes that you fell into during the process? These could have some importance. What surprised you? When you are sharing this data, I find it's much easier to, instead of putting it in a report and emailing it over, to have that conversation. And you could, I find that when you present visual things and you say, you know what, actually, I really struggled with this, and I feel funny that this didn't work for me, it can help stakeholders join the dots and of like, oh, actually, you know what, someone in marketing and comms has done something very similar. Maybe I'll put you in touch and you can take a look. So you're presenting information, they're understanding what you're getting from it, but then also you're making connections within the business, which means that you're more likely to have fuller story, a more colorful story that will then help you in your final product.
Another research approach is benchmarking. So benchmarking is researching existing example in the market, for instance, digital products that are having the same goal, the same target than the product you are going to develop, and look at the solutions that are out there. It can be that you are looking at a specific type of feature or a specific type of problem, or it could be that in general you want, for instance, to look at the main e-commerce apps out there. It can be as well that you are looking for your competitor to understand how they solve similar problems and how they address the needs and pain point of their user, because you want to put in the market and you feel that those people are more successful or are a bit more on point to answer the user's problems. What is interesting with benchmarking is that it can happen at various stages of the product development cycle. It can be done really at the beginning, after you have your product definition done, where you want, for instance, to check your competitor, or just because you have some ideas already of specific needs and problem, because you just talk with your user and you want to see a little bit how could be you know, some product out of the market, how could be their answers, right? But you see, if you look at the timeline at the bottom of this slide, it can also happen twice or even more times at different steps of the product development even if it's at the beginning, you know. It can be that, for instance, in the example, like in the example below, you did first some benchmarking, then it helps you to come up with some concept with the team, and you tested some mid-fidelity concept with people to understand how they resonate with them, and it helps you then to refine your area of focus and say, oh, well, actually, I was first thinking about the e-commerce solution, but this is too broad, and it's not my place in the market, and I want to focus on a specific area of this e-commerce solution. So now I'm going to do again some benchmarking around this specific area of focus to refine. Then I will go back to the team and prioritize, conceptualize with them, again, following this design thinking process that Anna was presenting earlier on. So it's really something that can happen at multiple times. And I would say it's always good, you know, to take some time to check what's going on out there and come back to the team with some analysis, some synthesis. Can be also a very nice way to engage your team. I noticed, for instance, when I'm doing benchmarking and I'm sharing my progresses, I always have other people saying, oh, but did you check this up? I think it's quite interesting. Or here, there is this user pattern that can be applied to this problem. Maybe you should check it out, or look, I have this video, etc. So it's also a way to very early on involve the rest of your team and make sure that everyone is on board, again, with the product definition, with the market target, etc. On the next slide, here you can see some example from different benchmarking decks. So most of the time, this research will be presented back to the team and stakeholders in the form of slides, and it is composed of analysis, so some text, some also insight about what could be applied to the product this team is going to develop, and how it could be applied to this specific product with its specificality. Because again, you might look at competitor or comparator, but you don't want to simply copy. You want to be inspired, you want to understand how others are solving the problem, but you don't want to copy. And you will have also, as you can see on the right, a couple of slides that are screenshots from the different example you were researching, showing some interesting patterns, can be also showing some interesting flows, user flows, so how the user are navigating from one point to the other, can be just like the copy and the way something is presented. For instance, the one in the middle is around loyalty, and the way you present to people a loyalty scheme is extremely important and can be very different from one product to the other. It can be also very different from one target audience to the other. So you need to have something resonating with people, and this is part of this UX and market research that you do. Next one, please. Another research approach that is personally my favorite is speaking to user interviews. So you have as well a different moment where you can, where you should actually talk with your user, because this is going to help you to ensure that there is this ongoing conversation with the people that are going to use this app or this product when it's out in the market. And you have really some key moment where you should talk with them. It can be also done in various forms. So for instance, if you do what is called discovery interview that are happening really at the beginning, where you have ideas about your product, some definition of it, but you want to hear people before moving forward with ideation and solution, you will sit with people and basically ask them about their experience. For instance, if it's an e-commerce product, you will ask them about their experience shopping in general, shopping offline, shopping online. Maybe you will ask them to tell you how was it the last time they were shopping on, I don't know, Zalando, for instance, or when they went to their local shopping center, what happened? You know, you want to hear their stories. You will also ask very often what went well with their experience, what was not so good. You want also to have negative feedback, because this is key to understand their problems, and you want your product to be able to address said problem. And my favorite one, you will ask why, because this is about understanding the why, understanding your people, understanding their behavior, and finding some patterns. What is really, really nice with user interviews is, you know, when you start to talk to people, you will very, very, very fast see common patterns, common behavior. And that are like the insight that are the most important for you and for your team, because this is where there is an opportunity for you to address a problem, because you see that a lot of different people are actually facing a similar situation or similar problems. If we go to the next, yeah, perfect. So you can see that during the user interviews, as I said previously, it can be just question, like discovery question, but you can later in the progress, when you have already, for instance, some concept, or even later on when you have already defined flow, you can and you should talk again with people. When it comes to the concept phase, I find it super interesting to just present low fidelity mockup to people. It can be even as simple as the sketches that you can see there. It can be also pieces from a sketch, like something you just draw, and you will ask people to build their experience. Or it can be like the one in the middle, different concept around here in this example, around services. And you ask people what they think about it, basically. You ask a lot of why, and you hear people answering. It's like a conversation, but you are listening quite a lot. So you can understand by presenting different concepts what could be an area of opportunity and what could be developed further with more research, for instance, or develop further with some brainstorm with your team, etc. And as I said, later on in the process, when you have something more defined, you will do usability test. So basically you will mock up in a prototype. So a designer prototype that is not like working for real. It's just, you know, using some tool like Protopy or Principle or Marvel, but it will be clickable, and the people you will invite to interview will be able to almost have the same experience that they might have with a real app. You will give them, for instance, a little scenario to follow, and it is to understand what is working from a usability perspective, but also it's another way to test the concept and the ideas your team is planning to develop before jumping into the final flows from design and the whole implementation. That is like, it's a very big step, and it requires a lot of efforts, a lot of time, and you want to test before to make sure that what you are going to build is the right solution, or is a solution at least resonating with people with potential. Next one, please. All right, so again, we were talking about the design thinking process, and the interview with user, the way to, you know, include the user in this design thinking process is super important. And we can see again that we have, at the very beginning, during the empathize phase, we have discovery interviews that are key to understand the problem, to map the problem space, to understand the need, to help also define your product and define your vision and the future strategy. And then later on, they can be concept testing, so meet fidelity, maybe some paper. When you can do it in person, it's of course nicer, because you can put a lot of little paper cards on the table and ask people to react to that, to arrange them in a certain way. When you can't, and you do it remote, is also feasible, but I have to say I'm missing a little bit this part. And later on, when you are already testing ideas, you can do usability test. So with a prototype, with something more refined, with something showing the narrative of your future products, with something showing a flow, and helping people to feel in real life condition and give you feedback about it. That being said, when I'm doing concept testing or usability testing, I really like to always start with discovery questions. So question about people habits, etc., like you do in the discovery interviews, because I feel it's a nice way to connect the dots with the insight you collected really at the beginning, and the one you continue to collect all over the process. It's also a good introduction to the concept testing or the usability testing that will happen afterward. And the more insight you have from people, the better, right? Moving on to a very important bit. So all the things we were showing you from the beginning with Anna are all great and nice and beautiful and important. However, in real life scenarios, more often than not, the whole team is not involved from the beginning. And I'm thinking especially about front-end, back-end, and QA engineers that might even start to work on this project some weeks after this research phase, which of course is not ideal. Because actually, if you manage to have everyone included from the beginning, it is extremely beneficial for the team and for the product. So if you go to the next, yeah. Why is it actually so important? And what are the principles that you can follow to make sure that it is happening? The first one, in my opinion, is transparency and communication. Even if the engineers are not yet part of the team, you can find a way to make sure the goals are documented. You can find a way to make sure that any report you wrote are accessible, are shared with everyone. You can prepare also a kickoff for the development team when they are going to join where you will go through the definition of the product and the strategy, just to make sure that everyone is up to speed and everyone understands the why behind this product. Because it's super frustrating to be just asked to build something without even knowing why, and if it makes sense, and if it will be resonating with people at all. That's the second point, understanding the user and the problem space. When it's possible, I really like to have everyone in the team joining at least 1 or 2 user interviews every time we have user interviews. Because not only it will help to bring empathy and to understand better the people, because you hear the people explaining their problem, explaining their need directly. It's much more impactful than me saying, oh, you know, our user have issue with reviews when they order online. You know, it's like you hear the stories, but it's also great because then you have much more perspective, much more opinion when you do a little debrief after that, and you review the different interviews, you review the patterns, you are going to extract insight from, and it's of course way better when you are a bigger team. I also find that having everyone involved help people to have more ownership, to be more motivated, to feel part of one team. You know, it's like now we are a product team. There are no fence garden between developers, stakeholders, product design. We all have the same goal. We all want to serve the user. And at the end, it's not only resulting in better team dynamics, but also a better product. So there are some practical tool and initiative that you could put in place to make sure this is happening. And I think it's the role of everyone to make sure that, you know, we are all working together, but maybe as designer or product person being involved from the very, very start, involved in the product definition, organizing the research, it might be easier for you to put this in place. So for instance, when we think about transparency, if you use tool like Basecamp or Trello or whatever you use with your team, if you make sure that when something is defined or some very interesting research insight is shared, if you make sure it is visible there and you ping on Slack, or you know, if there is a video with a user interview, you make sure it's also accessible. You make sure that everyone is up to speed and have access to all the knowledge. This is also great for alignment and very important for alignment, because you want everyone to be aligned. You don't want someone to think, oh yeah, we are building for this, and the other is like, oh no, we are building that, you know? So this is really, really, really important. Another one is to organize little shareouts. They don't have to be really long. You don't have to show a 50 slides deck. Please don't show a 50 slide decks to people. But you can show, for instance, the 5 key insights from the user interview, the discovery interviews, if the team was not able to attend. Just, you know, high level. And if people want to know more, there is documentation, or you can answer questions. Using collaborative documents is also great, because it might be that people have questions and they were not part of the share out, so they can just like drop it in the collaborative document, and then you can address them. Invite the team to meet the user is key here as well. And not only during the interviews, but also when you do UX exercise, like for instance, if you map the user journey, it's super important to have everyone joining if they can, or at least to share. When you involve people, feedback is key as well. You have now beautiful tools for designers and for product owners like Figma or Miro that are allowing very easily everyone to participate, everyone to leave comment, to ask question, and just using collaborative tool might already make a difference. At the end of the day, it will influence the term on the long run. People will have a more collaborative mindset, and everyone will be aligned around the same goal, that is serving the users. Next one, please.
So I'm going to follow up on that and talk about team feedback specifically. You may be thinking, that's great, getting everybody involved, there's going to be a lot of conversation, a lot of talking. But what does that actually mean? How can we make sure that we are giving the best feedback? So some principles here is to include multiple disciplines to get different perspectives, and to have a conversation about what you're looking for. I found personally that when I started getting more involved in this collaborative way of working, and when I joined Novoda, I was super shy about giving feedback on work that wasn't necessarily like my discipline, because I felt like, who am I to say like, oh, you know, I've seen this thing, like, would that help you or whatever? But actually, no, like, it's not that at all. Like, to be open and to like share different perspectives is so great, and you learn from each other. So this is something that we really push. I put try and attempt on these in bold because this is a very hard thing to do. So try and see through the eyes of the user and attempt to ignore your own biases. So the amount of meetings that I've been in where you're presenting certain ideas and then it's like, oh, you know, that looks great, but like, I actually prefer this color, or maybe this would look good. And that is just your own projection and what you find aesthetically pleasing. And it's like, well, actually, we had looked at these bunch of users, these were the products that they were using, they look this certain way, maybe this would work for them. So putting some work into that, I find really helpful. When you're giving feedback, come with a real deep level of empathy. You never know why choices are made. If you haven't been involved in the whole process, instead of jumping to, oh, well, I didn't think that this was going to happen this way, do the whys, do the 5 what, why, where, and that will help you understand the context of the whole scenario. And then the questions that you're asking, the feedback you're giving will be a lot more targeted. When you're giving feedback, think about how does that help the person that's receiving it to learn and grow. It's not necessarily about you putting in your bit because you want to make sure that your opinion is heard, but it's like it's for that person that's working on it. So how would it help them? And in the same breath, how does the feedback benefit the user? What you're saying, how does it enhance the user experience? How does it improve it? And so here's some tools and initiatives. So setting up a rhythm of feedback involving stakeholders means that there are no surprises. If you put these processes in place where you say, hey, on Fridays, we have like open feedback, you know the tools that we're using, you know where the work's happening, come and have a look, give some feedback, and we'll just keep doing this every Friday. Like once you're in a rhythm of that and a habit, it's much easier to keep that going. Yeah, Lydia mentioned this, but these are the tools that are designed for collaboration. Figma is something that we use quite a lot here. Everybody can comment on that, and you can comment like at the actual point of the specific product, so it doesn't end up getting lost in Slack threads or emails. Make sure there are frequent opportunities for feedback and extend those to multiple disciplines. And most importantly, learn how to give better feedback. There's a book that I want to recommend here called Thanks for the Feedback. And it can be quite challenging. It can make you quite uncomfortable, which is a good thing, because feedback can be really uncomfortable. But spend some time with that, because I feel like that really does add to the quality of the product.
Yeah, so if we think again of everything that we just discussed, the fact that it's very important to focus on the user, to involve the whole team, to have constructive feedback, and make sure that everyone is up to speed on the why behind this decision, then it's come to the impact of this approach. And the impact is on the product, more quality and more confidence. Why? Because if everyone is the team, is user-centric, is directly connected to the user, is talking to the user, hearing from the user, seeing the user at regular key moments, they will naturally understand better said user and empathize with their problem, empathize with their needs, and make sure that at their level, with their specialties, with their discipline, they can offer sensible solutions, sensible suggestions, and that their feedback will be extremely valuable for the rest of the team. Because this approach is iterative, it's also an approach where you can learn a lot. It's not linear, it's based on trial and error, it's based on team collaboration, it's based on helping each other or on giving feedback to each other, etc. So it is much more a learning oriented approach, and the quality will be higher, the confidence will be higher, because it's okay to try and fail. It's for better learnings. Having clear and common goal, align with everyone. I mean, we covered that already. Knowing the why you are building something is just extremely important, and you will be much more motivated and much more confident if you know why you are doing that. So the quality will be increased at the end. When it comes to the team, actually, on the next slide, thank you. Having this approach is helpful to ensure people are collaborating, ensure everyone is involved all the time, and not first product, then design, then front end, then back end, and QA in the middle, and that's it. You know, again, we don't want a linear approach. It is very much motivating because you have opportunity to learn from other disciplines. We all work together all the time, right? And if you have some specialists shining at different parts of the process, it's a team effort. It's transparent, everyone knows the why, everyone is up to speed, everyone feel they are enabled to participate to the vision, everyone feel they own a little bit this product. So at the end, you have less silos, you have more empathy for the user, you have happier teams, because we are all participating to this common effort with common goals and common understanding.
Yeah.
And of course, this isn't a one-time thing. This is an iterative approach. Everything that we've just said are things that may not work for everyone. You have to try and change it for your clients, for your teams, depending on the roles, what you're trying to achieve. But if you keep to the foundations of what we've just said, you're very likely to have a very successful product. So thank you so much for listening to us. We want to do a little shout out here. Novoda run Design Lab, which is a design community. Eventually we're going to be doing some remote things. It's not just for designers, but we tend to talk about these kind of subjects. So yeah, you can find us at Design Lab Meetup on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter, Anna Youngs, and you can also find Lydia.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much for that. I'm going to throw it open to questions in a moment, but just before I throw it to general questions, and I'm going to make this sound like I did this deliberately at the start, because I didn't read your the little bio that the two of you gave me. But based on what I've just seen there, and I've worked with UX people in the past from time to time, to a greater or lesser extent. I love the idea of getting it more involved with the project. But I'm just curious for one or both of you to just quickly explain what the sort of career paths you went through to get to where you are. Because I think Anna and Lydia, you both told me that you're product strategists now, or you're in the product design lead space. So what sort of career paths did you go through to get to where you are?
Okay, I can answer that. I actually studied visual communication, and I started to work before apps were existing, were a thing. So I started as an app design, print designer. But you know, when digital apps started to be on the market, I just became so excited about it that I switched to a more digital design kind of role. And when you start to work for digital product, you discover that it's not static. It's like this conversation with the user. And if I started as UI, and then I wanted to learn more about UX, because it's not just a static screen that you are doing for people. It's something they interact with. It's coming from there. I was like, yeah, but wait, I also want to be involved in product. It's super interesting. And without product definition, what I'm designing is useless, you know? And then you learn even more. Then you learn also how important it is to work on the team dynamics, how it is important to make sure that everyone feel involved, that everyone is part of the collaboration, is aware of the decision. And then it made me evolve into more like a product design, senior product design, to lead and team lead, project lead, and recently design manager. Because when you begin to care about the team and the people and the processes, very soon after, you just want to help people grow as well. And this is something I can do with manager role. So, you know, a progression.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to ask, does anybody else have any questions at the moment? Looking at put your hand up, or are you saying something, Julia? Yeah, please go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, there is two things actually that I would like to say. Three. First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. It was really, really good. You gave a fantastic overview of all the principles and activities that comes before the delivery phase. Second thing, Lydia, we've got a very similar background, career path. So I understand how you feel and what you went through. Good. And the third thing is that they presented very well principles, good practices for product design, product development. But this doesn't mean that the project that we work mostly at Codurance, often they don't have even a user interface. But this doesn't mean that the principle cannot be applied to these projects. So there is always a business we need to talk to. There are always users, customers that needs the data that we manage. So we really need to understand why we do things. So even if you're not a product designer, a UX designer, a product manager, let's say a product person, I would like to encourage engineers and developers to maybe go to these meetups just to understand the mindset, that it's not related to a discipline at all, because
that's a really good point.
We are building products, we are building services. So I think that you would benefit a lot from...
I feel like there's a opportunity here to do some design thinking workshops.
I think you're probably right, Anna. I mean, I think my own experience in the last few years, probably the most successful products and amongst the happiest ones were the ones that had strong UX leadership in them. Because for all the win in the world that developers and tech leads and people like me think that we know how to design a user interface, there's this whole world of understanding the user that lies behind that none of us get particularly many opportunities to touch. And I do remember one time, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, we were building a thing for exhibitions, and the whole team, which was about 10, 12 of us, went to the London Book Fair in London to actually put this thing in front of people and ask them to use it. And that was really, really cool.
Nice.
That's like a good project.
Went live. Are there any other questions? I'm conscious we're very short of time. Does anybody want to make any more questions? Looking through, I'm not seeing anybody now. So look,
if you can think of anything, just reach out to us on Twitter. We're there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we'd be happy to answer.
I should have said right at the start, so before we wrap up the call, that we have been talking to Novoda in partnership discussions. I don't know exactly how far we've gone along that line, but it's clear to me from this meeting and from conversations we've had that Novoda has some capability that at the moment we don't really have. and we have capability, i.e. software development, that could help Novoda. So, you know, it would be good if there's some opportunity for partnerships there, and if you know, product visioning, product design workshops. You know, as I said, I think developers should be involved in those. Whether or not we can get them to take them on board is another matter. But so I found it really useful today. I hope everybody else has too. And thank you very much to Lydia and Anna. That's applause, by the way, these days. That's COVID applause. So thank you very much.